If you've been watching the real estate market over the last couple of years, you know that it has been a story of waiting and watching. Every month brings new numbers, and it can be hard to know what actually matters for your situation. I'm Sean Jaffrey, and today I'm looking at the economic data so you don't have to. In this update, I will walk you through the latest announcements from the Bank of Canada, what buyers are telling us about what they want, and what is happening right now with the prices. Let's get started. Okay, let us begin with the Bank of Canada. On March 18th, they announced that they're holding the overnight rate at 2.25%. This means the prime rate stays at 4.45%. When the bank holds rates steady, it tells us they are in a wait and see position. They mentioned that the war in the Middle East is creating volatility in global energy prices and financial markets. Not the fact that the leader of the free world is allegedly taking policy cues from Netanyahu because of Epstein related blackmail tapes. Trump being a PDF is completely unrelated to all of this. Either way, this adds uncertainty to the global economy. And why does this matter to you? Well, when rates hold steady, borrowing costs remain predictable. For buyers, this means you can plan without worrying about sudden increases. For sellers, it means the buyers who are out there have had time to adjust to current rates. Stability, even when it comes from doing nothing, gives the market a bit of a foundation to build on. Now, let us look at the buyer sentiment that I had referred to earlier. RBC released a survey this week with some very useful insights. 67% respondents said that they want to buy a home. That is up from 62% last year. 32% expect to purchase a house or a condo within the next 2 years. Here's what stands out. 4 out of 5 people believe purchasing a home is one of life's biggest financial milestones. 73% view it as a sign of financial independence. What this tells us is that the desire to own a home has not faded. Even with the market shifts, Canadians still see home ownership as a meaningful goal. That underlying demand matters because it means there are buyers waiting for the right opportunity. The market may be slower, but the interest is there. Let us look at the national numbers from the Canadian Real Estate Association. Last month, there were about 30,000 home sales across the country. That is 8% lower than the same time last year. On a seasonally adjusted basis, sales fell 1.3% from the previous month. The average sales price nationally ticked down 0.2% to $660,000. Listings are up with 150,000 properties for sale, and that is a 3.7% increase from last year. Now, national numbers give us a sense of the overall trend, but they do not tell us what is happening in the local market. For that, we look to the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and they tell us that in February 2026, the average sales price across the GTA for all dwelling types was $1 million. To give you some context, in February 2022, that number was $1.3 million. Over the past few years, we've seen a 25% decrease. Sales volume tells us a similar story. In February 2022, there were 9,000 monthly sales across the GTA. Last February, that number was 3,800, which is a decrease of 58%. These numbers show a market that has cooled considerably from the peak. For buyers, this means less competition than in previous years. And for sellers, it means pricing expectations need to align with current conditions. The market is active, but it is very selective. HomeStars.com did a survey this week that gave us insight into how homeowners are thinking. 34% of Canadians said they were more likely to spend on a renovation in 2026 than in the previous year. For those aged 18 to 34, that number rose to 43%. More than half of respondents said that rising and falling house values made them more likely to renovate than move. This matters because when homeowners choose to renovate instead of sell, it affects inventory. Fewer homes coming onto the market means supply stays tighter. For buyers, this reinforces the importance of being ready when a home that meets your needs does become available. For sellers, it means that if you do decide to list, you are not competing against as many other properties as you might have been a few years ago. Now, turning to Statistics Canada, they reported that the national inflation rate eased to 1.8% last month. That was below economists' expectations of 1.9% and below the Bank of Canada's 2% target. Typically, inflation below target would support the case for rate cuts. However, the Epstein war in the Middle East has pushed global oil prices higher, which introduces new pressures on inflation. This is why the Bank of Canada is taking a cautious approach. We also have data from the Office of Superintendent of Bankruptcy, and that shows us that Canadians filed 140,000 consumer insolvencies last year. That includes both personal bankruptcies and consumer proposals. This is a 2.3% increase from 2024 and exceeds the peak recorded in 2019 during COVID. These numbers remind us that financial pressures exist for some households. For those in a stable position, this context helps explain why the market is moving at a slower pace. It also highlights why working with accurate information matters when making a real estate decision. So let us summarize where things stand. Number one, the Bank of Canada is holding rates steady while watching global events. Number two, buyer desire to own a home remains strong, with many planning to purchase within the next 2 years. Number three, sales volumes are lower than peak years and prices have adjusted from their highs. Number four, more homeowners are choosing to renovate, which affects inventory. And number five, inflation has eased, but global pressures remain. Understanding these pieces helps you make informed decision whether you are considering buying, selling, or simply staying put. Knowing the market context is valuable. Here's a question for you to consider. What matters more to you in your next move? Finding the right home or waiting for the right market conditions? If you found this update helpful, consider subscribing to stay informed. I will continue to share the data and context you need to navigate the Oakville real estate market with confidence. Thank you for watching.